What's up, Yuma? Welcome back to What's Up, Yuma Radio. We are here now joined by
our award-winning KAWC Education Solutions reporter, Sisko Stargazer. And I just want to say, we'll get into this more, but Sisko earned a first place award from the Public Media Journalists Association, or PMJA, in the digital writing category for the story Deep Dive, How Arizona's School Facility System Was Ruled Unconstitutional. Thank you for being here this morning.
Oh, thank you. Hi.
Hi, how are you doing? So have you guys met each other before?
A little bit, yeah.
I think a few years back.
Yeah, here you go. So thank you for being with us. It was cool. Victor came in and he's like, I got some good news to share. And he was able to share that you got this award for your journalism. And so what was it like when you found out that you got this award?
I was really excited. It was actually just before our Spirited Discussion event for Dave.
Really? It was right before that?
I got the news. I was like, oh, this is amazing.
Like that day? Earlier in that day?
No, right before I drove to the event.
Oh, right. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
It was so exciting. I would think about it later. I'm like, I can't believe this is reality, but it is real. This is so exciting. Mm-hmm. And, I worked really hard on this particular article. It took me several months to put together. So it's also just like really validating that this work matters and that other people believe it does too.
And you said that matters, right? Okay, how do I want to frame this? Tell everybody a little bit about what it is, and then let's get into why it matters, and then maybe even also keeping people accountable.
Sure. Yeah. So this started out, I had heard this news that there was an outcome with a lawsuit, and one of our own districts in Yuma was one of the plaintiff districts. And I thought, well, hey, that's news. That's important. Let's dig into it. I start talking to people about it, like their CFO, who's now going to be the superintendent of the district. Chatted with him. He connects me also with the lead counsel on the case. And I learned so much. I've been covering education since 2021, and I still feel like there are things that I'm learning because finance is that complicated, education finance. But I go through the court document, and I think that's where it really hit me, just how big this was. And you always have some distance, right, as a reporter. Like, I cannot interject my own opinions. But, when you're working on stuff, you still have feelings. You care
have those
about
emotions.
People.
You see some of the stuff. Maybe like you have pictures right here that you could show us. But you're seeing this. You're witnessing it. You're getting this certain accounts. And you said you've been covering education for a while. But this one is a little bit more eye-opening? Or tell me about it.
It did bring some more things into focus because there were things that I had seen before, issues that I'd heard of. And I already understood, like, for example, District 1, they struggle with aging facilities. Their district is more than 100 years old. So it makes sense, right? Yeah. But you don't really understand everything that happens until you really get into the meat of like the actual funding mechanism, the system behind it, and how that actually looks like. Well, we find out in the court documents. So there was a lot of evidence, and so this is, I'm going to share some.
Hold them up. Yeah. So you have to look at the stream, but so this is just some examples of some of the conditions that the classrooms around the state, some of the classrooms that, find themselves in terms of, dirty roofs and,
breaking floors, like fissures in floors. We've got mold, this sink that don't know what's up with that exactly. Unclean drinking water. We've also got actually two of our, and this was another interesting thing with the case, was that two of our own districts in Yuma and La Paz were case sample studies. And so one of them was Mohawk Valley School. That's in rural Arizona. And so you can see a lot of like separation between like walls, but the real one, actually, the real challenge was the bathroom. That was kind of like, I guess you could say, the highlight.
Yeah, I think like there's a missing sink there, and the urinals aren't working. They're out of order.
Doesn't look very inviting.
The two toilets right next to each other, no stalls.
Yeah. This bathroom actually had, there was mold that they reported that they found in it, and at certain times of the year, fungal plant would pop up.
Wow.
So you read about this stuff, you're seeing this evidence, and it's unbelievable, to be honest. And it's a real shame. So I did feel more motivated to do a good job on this story, especially because I think people deserve to understand how these things work. Because, sure, it sounds abstract. It's a budget line, right? We put X money into X things, and we hope things happen, like things run smoothly. But, what happens when there isn't enough money? What does it actually look like? Are we affected by this? And the truth is we are. So I really appreciate having like this evidence here. It kind of helps paint a clearer picture. What schools look like here?
And no, this evidence you have, did you get it, obtain it through, like you said, the court documents? That's what this is?
Yeah.
This was presented as part of the case?
Yes. So it's in the official record on it, and this you will actually see like in the actual images.
Oh,
like,
that's what that is up there?
It says here deputy clerk who actually put it in the file, and there's a lot of deposition info. So it was a lot of material to go through. But, again, it matters a lot. These are people who, like, even if, so I like to explain, I'm not a direct stakeholder in schools in the sense that I don't have any kids. I don't have kids in my life really that I am close to. It doesn't affect me directly in that sense. But we are all part of a community.
As a human being.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. As like you said, community. Those are the things. Now, education reporter, you have certain duties. You go out and you find certain things. Maybe like somebody gets, valedictorian or something happens. But this is different. This is a totally different side. Tell me, what was some of the shocking things that you learned about how the way this money gets spent, and maybe if there is no money? Tell me a little bit about that.
I think one was finding out that so there are minimum standards that they outline for school facilities. And so, for example, one of them is that a secure school is one that has a fence around it.
And that means secure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the standards have not been updated since, it's been a minute since I wrote this. I want to say roughly 2000-ish, I believe the early 2000s. So a lot has changed since then.
Yeah.
Especially when you think about the risks of like school shootings, awful stuff. A fence doesn't necessarily feel very secure. But like that, those are the standards in which they define like, okay, is this school actually is this facility adequate?
Is it
enough?
adequate? Does it meet our low bar, but whatever it is?
Yeah, that helps determine what money, goes into what schools, how much they can get. It's more competitive now where it's a building renewal grant. So you can't just say, hey, I need this money. You kind of have to apply for the grant and you might get it, except it's super underfunded because in the latest numbers I had, there was like 200-ish million that they put into I guess you could say the grant fund, but the needs for the state that they were aware of were more than double that.
Yeah, more than double. So then one thing I don't like to do is play a blame game.
Yeah.
Because it's tough because it goes through different levels. But what is it like for some of these, maybe, I don't know, a principal, superintendent, somebody part of the school, teachers, when they go and say, hey, we need help?
What is it like for them?
Like who are they talking to? Like who has the answers?
I think one of it is legislators, but also
yeah, I heard that in your report. Yeah, talk about it.
That's really, they're the decision makers at the end of the day. But it depends. Like if they're talking to, like, let's say maybe they're looking for other sources of money, then sure, you might apply for other grants, maybe federal grants too. So. It depends. It varies.
Yeah. So then what can the legislators do? And maybe is it about raising awareness? Like this had to go all the way to a lawsuit to be able to raise this awareness, which if a legislator, they get there, they're supposed to represent the community, the people that sent them there, right?
Yeah. So I guess it's worth pointing out, first of all, so the reason why this lawsuit actually, like the judge ruled in favor of schools is that it found, because there's a state constitution, right? So that one says that you have to provide for a general and uniform public school system. And they were able, with all of this evidence, and there was a lot of it, to prove that actually it's not equal, it's not general and uniform. We have districts that are struggling a lot because they don't have, like, the property values in certain districts, they're not as high, so they don't have as much money available to them. And it's been forcing schools to have to hold these elections, like for bonds and overrides. So asking for more money from taxpayers. I mean, taxpayers in general, they don't like having to pay more taxes. And I understand. So, part of the argument was that they shouldn't be putting that burden on the taxpayer when the state already demands that they owe it to the schools to provide for them. So, that was the outcome. The judge said, hey, this isn't fair. And now what he said was that, I forget which month it was. I want to say May or April, he actually said the legislature has 8 months to come up with a new system that actually meets that demand.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really up to them now. They have to, rethink go back to the drawing board, rethink their funding model for school facilities specifically. But, here's the other complication. That's up in appeals as well right now. So
That's up in appeals right now.
yeah.
Okay.
The majority leaders for state Senate and state House, they immediately filed an appeal. So
Then it's interesting, an appeal to say we don't want to solve this problem. Like, that sounds interesting, right? It's like, and now, and so now goes into my next question, which I was going to lead to. Did you get to talk to these legislatures as part of your program?
Not them specifically, not
and
those.
Why not?
Well, one, they are at the state level. They're more higher up there, and I could reach out to them. It just kind of depends on how much time do I have to work on
gotcha.
this?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's different factors. I have it in my mind that I do want to ask the next time I am speaking with some of our own representatives. I mean, really, the dream would be look at these pictures. Can you please explain to me, how you feel about this, and do you think this is fair or not? Just to kind of, again, it's not because here's the thing, right? There's the personal side.
Yes.
But I'm also. In my opinion, journalism is about serving the people. It is a public service.
Yes.
So when I'm asking questions, it's not just for myself, it's for other people, right? And I do think that our legislature owes answers to the public about this.
Yes. So it's not
That's the
about
goal.
a gotcha. It's not a gotcha thing. It's okay, this is a concern. This is here. I represent the community as a journalist. I take my job serious, right? Like you said, you have no skin in the game as far as kids or nieces and nephews but as a journalist, you have this integrity to say, okay, I want to hold you accountable. That's all this is. There's no feelings or emotions tied to it. Can you explain this? You would like to be able to do that.
Yeah. And, the nice thing is I was able to speak with our state superintendent of public instruction.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked him, what do you think about this? What the outcome? But he was just well, that's not really, that's more the school facilities board.
Oh, so is that true?
I mean, in a way, yes.
Okay.
But he's still the figurehead. He's the top dog, really, for
So he should have
everything
some
education.
answers.
I would think so. I would hope so. But you know how it is.
All right. Yes, and we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to learn a little bit more about how it is on the other side of this break. You're listening to What's Up Yuma Radio right here on 94.7 KOFA Border Radio.
Today's day sponsors are Alice Ferris and Jim Anderson, celebrating Dave Reek's pending retirement. Dave, it's been our privilege to work alongside you and call you a friend. Thank you for the conversations, the laughter, the perspective, and for proving that some of the best ideas emerge after one more drink by the pool. We wish you all the best.
It's going to be breezy in La Paz County today with the high near 107 in Quartzsite, clear tonight with a low around 72. Sunny in Parker with the high near 106, gusts as high as 25 miles per hour, clear tonight with a low around 72. And in Yuma, sunny with the high near 105, clear this evening with a low around 72.
The city of Yuma will host its annual Independence Day Spectacular on July 4th from 6 to 10 p.m. at Desert Sun Stadium. Stadium seating is limited, so bring your blankets or lawn chairs and enjoy the fireworks show. Only clear purses or bags, including diaper bags, will be permitted. No coolers. Details at yumaaz.gov/events.
This is Border Radio, KOFA, your passport to your global destination for music. We are your local public broadcasting station that can be heard through your radio at 94.7 FM, 1320 AM, on the KOFA app, and at borderradioaz.org.
What's up, Yuma? Welcome back to What's Up Yuma Radio. We are here joined by
Our award-winning KAWC Education Solutions reporter, Sisko Stargazer. So we're talking about this article that you won for. You're doing a deep dive on schools and the poor conditions that some of the schools are in, including some in Yuma and La Paz counties. How long did this take you to, get everything together to from when you, first got wind of this and then, you're gathering information, you're talking to sources, because this was a deep dive. And if you go online to the article at kwc.org, it's not a short article, it's a long article. So it is a deep dive, but it's worth looking into. And you took the time to, lay it all out. How long did this take for you?
Thank you. I'm trying to remember if I started in July or August. I want to say August. So let's say August. And then I published in December. So it took me all of that time.
Yeah.
And I wasn't like, every single day I'm doing a little thing on it. But I think part of it was that I thought I need to do a good job on this. It's such an important topic. And again, I like to tell people, I do think that it's so easy to say like, this is all boring because it's just like numbers and like, like law stuff and policy.
Yeah.
But again, it matters because it affects us all. So my goal was like, I want to make sure this is clear and understandable for everybody, because I do think that people in general, they deserve to have access to information and for it to be legible for them.
Right.
So that was my goal.
And I don't think it's a hot take to say that, kids should not have to go to school. Right. Whether we could talk about who funds it, right? But no kid should have to go to school in like an old classroom or a dirty classroom or have to use like facilities that are not, clean.
Oh yeah, look
and
at
safe.
the drinking water and some of that.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I should add, thankfully, like Mohawk Valley School, like their condition is way better now. They were lucky. They were kind of like this rare exception in the state where they got a special like full master renovation project.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
So did you visit the facilities afterwards?
I did.
Okay.
And the nice thing about having covered education here as long as I have is I got to be there originally when I was with the Yuma Sun. I covered when that renovation project got kicked off. At the time, though, I did not fully appreciate how significant it was because I didn't understand the full background. When I saw this, though, I'm like, oh my gosh, I get it now. This was such a huge deal. So I went back to the school, talked with the superintendent principal, Shanna Johnson. That was great. I got to see how they're doing now. Mostly better. Some of the sinks were struggling a bit because she was saying boys will be boys. They like to sit on the
Oh, okay, yeah.
But overall, though, doing a lot better. Then again, though, it was interesting. We talk about water, right? Their water was unsafe to even use to wash your hands with. I was in Welton just this week, and it sounds like Welton Elementary told me that they do not have safe running water right now, so they use water coolers.
Oh, so currently
So
that's an issue. Okay.
We still struggle.
So going back to what you said about, journalism as a service and so informing the public about, things that should matter to all of us, right? Not just the stakeholders. So in your opinion, as an education solutions reporter, how do you find those education solutions and why do you think that's important? Just talk more about that, please.
Okay, the funny thing with education solutions is, a lot of people ask, well, what exactly is that? I'd like to start with explaining that a lot of it is looking at what's working and what isn't with education. But I do think that a lot of us finding solutions is understanding the problem in the first place. And it might seem negative to focus on the problems, but how are you going to solve a problem if you don't really know what's going on, if you don't get it? So I do think I lean a little bit more towards let's understand this, but again, some of these things are super complicated. So you do need to kind of go deep into untangling those webs and figuring it out. So I focus more on that, but I'll see things pop up. It kind of depends on what news comes your way. So, for example, Castle Dome Middle School, which is kind of nearby here at the AWC campus, they had a temporary closure, but it was during the middle of the school year. So they had to move kids away, either remote or hanging out in the cafeterias and other spaces at the nearby elementaries. That's not normal. So I see that happen. I'm like, oh, this has to be funding related. So. And actually, one of the governing board members actually brought that up. So it was kind of, I guess you could say, almost fun to be able to actually tie this to, something more abstract and kind of show people this is another way. I guess you could say consequence, but another symptom of this problem, and just kind of tie it further back to that. So I don't know if that's a solution, but that's how I approach a lot of this. Is I'm looking for those connections and. Seeing what is the story here, what matters, what do people need to know? Yes,
and like you said, because you are in education, you've made those relationships with people. They know you, they trust you, they know they can go to you, and you're not going to spin it or ask them the gotcha questions. You're going to get to the point and ask them what does the public need to know, or why should they know this, or why should we hear from this individual? talk about you're also part of the student newsroom now, and we also, as we mentioned before, so we found out about getting the awards like weeks ago, but we couldn't formally announce it because there was a hold on the news, right? So that just was announced on Monday. So that's when I told you on like Tuesday, because it was officially announced like after we went off air. But so KAWC, you won the award for the deep dive on education. We also won an award for the student newsroom, Siendo Primero. And so can you tell us again about, what Siendo Primero brings to our community?
Yeah, so Siendo Primero specifically is a first-generation student-focused podcast, but, it basically reflects, like, the community we have here at AWC. So AWC, one, is a Hispanic-serving institution because they have a high amount of Hispanic students, but they also have a lot of first-generation college students. So this podcast kind of reflects both demographics, and it's basically, we generally have 2 students who are first-gen, and they kind of explore different topics that affect first-gen students here and kind of like share their perspective. And they interview all kinds of people. So students, staff, faculty, community members. It's a very involved show, and it's awesome. That one episode, so the navigating language, that one won second place. And it was about, what is it like being bilingual? Bilingualism in a way is kind of like a superpower.
Yes. And so that was with our student reporter, Sahe Barcenas and Evelyn Garcia. And we now have Melanie Ruiz Lopez as another host for Siendo Primero. Before them, we had other students that have hosted. So, again, that's a great program here on COFA Border Radio that, again, we get to hear from these students, right? And it's very important for us to hear their stories and in their own, words, right? And so that means bilingual. In English
the show
and Spanish.
itself is bilingual.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So anything else you want to say about, the student journalists?
We can comment a little bit more on Siendo Primero and like the work of the student newsroom in general. Yeah, especially with Siendo Primero this last semester, they were especially killing it. They just had, high production quality episodes. They always were submitting 20 to 30-minute pieces. I mean, it was hard to have any notes last semester because they were doing so well. And it makes you excited for them, right? It's so nice to see our students do well. But in general, yeah, the student newsroom, we have the Siendo Primero side that's more conversational and just I guess you could say fun in that sense. And then we have Hotspot, which is more newsy. And our students have been getting a lot of experience with reporting through it, and the summer is really our boot camp session. So right now they're focusing on local elections, and they are working hard.
Yeah. So I had Mayor Doug Nichols on the program, and then I was talking to him, and they were like, "No, you got to come over here. You got to come over here." And it was over here was the other side of the glass over here, and that's part of the boot camp they're kind of going through the summer. They got to interview the mayor. What was that like?
Oh, that was great. And part of it actually, they were learning a little bit watching the both of you speak with them and the questions
cool.
you
Well,
were
I'm sorry
asking.
about that.
No.
They're like, who's that Johnny guy? No, no.
I apologize.
Look,
No, it's all good.
I didn't hear anything negative from them,
cool.
but
Yeah.
even if you were bad, let's say you can.
You can learn from it.
Exactly. There's no bad lesson, right?
Sure,
but
sure.
no, they enjoyed it. They were watching you all. They were kind of commenting too on some of the answers that were given and just how it was handled. But they did great, and they interviewed him, and it seemed to go well.
So how did they get the questions, or what was their focus when they got to interview Mayor Nichols?
Well, right now we're kind of focusing a little bit on first-time voting, so I think that kind of helped guide some of their thinking of what do we want to ask. But we have mentors in the program as well, so we have student mentors. So those two kind of led the charge on interviewing the mayor, and they drafted their own questions. So really, I just took a look. I'm like, yeah, this is pretty good. There was one I thought, let's elaborate a little bit. Can you make the connection here clear? But they were great.
So that was your only really piece of advice was that you just okay, do this, and they did great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the others are still learning, but
Yeah. But
future Cisco's that are going to kill it. In terms
absolutely.
of doing in-depth
Right.
journalism.
And then where can you hear that? What they recorded?
Oh, yeah. So we have not published it yet.
Okay.
But we are, hoping to publish some of the student work actually directly on our website, kawc.org. But a lot of their work in general you will find on Hotspot and Siendo Primero on the podcast tab on our website.
Mm-hmm. What is the typical hotspot thing that you would cover? You said that right now it's elections, but what beyond elections?
Okay, so we're still figuring out the plan for what is going to go in hotspot next,
Oh, okay.
because we're changing the rotation of which students are going to be on it. But so that's a little bit different. We will have some student work though published directly like on our regular news content. So keep an eye out. It will be there. Some of it will also be on Arizona Edition this weekend actually.
Oh, okay.
But before that, so last semester, once we had our more like settled in students, they were picking the topic. So one of them was like transplants in Yuma. Why did you choose to come to Yuma? Another one was about what does it mean to be neurodivergent? What is that experience like? I know they also wanted to talk to snowbirds, winter visitors, but they didn't get to. So that's why they focused on transplants in general.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's just different things about what is it like in the community, different topics. So they're great.
Yeah, and then like Victor is saying, you have a hand in it, and we could have future award-winning journalists.
Oh, we
come
will.
through. Yeah,
we will. They're going to do great things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it's awesome. I'm so excited. They are doing great, and it's just nice to kind of talk craft with them and sit down and talk the writing, like, and also help clarify, right? Like, this is why this matters, and this is also why, like, we went over NPR ethics, integrity, honesty, all these important things. So it's just great.
Yeah.
One last question. Do you got any other big juicy stories that you're going to be working on soon? What's the next one?
Oh yes, actually, I have several. I think the biggest project I'm working on is like exploring what is it like to cross the border daily to go to school, because we have a lot of students who do that.
Absolutely. And with all of our guests, tell everybody how they can find out more information about you and listen to this story that you won the award for.
Just go to our website or our app, KAWC.org. That's the best place to start.
All right.
Chili from Philly. Nick Papa Giorgio from Yuma.